A restoration project in progress. Not a pleasant thing to think about. It's really a complete disaster. It wasn't always like this. A few months ago when we arrived, the kitchen was presentable, not great, but it was workable and livable. And now, it's only going to get worse before it gets better. Our primary objective at this point is simply to remove everything that postdates 1943. This begins with the cabinets. Some of these cabinets are relics of the 60s and 70s and pop right out. Some are a bit newer and require more work, but we eventually get them out too. Our goal is to remove these things without damaging the original plaster behind them. In this, we are mostly successful. Oh man, look at that. Look at that silly old wallpaper. With my almost pathological hatred for drywall, removing it is and always will be a top priority on any restoration project. The stove was pretty well shot, so it ended up at the scrapyard. Then down with the rest of the drywall. And this uncovered an almost forgotten secret, the outlines of the original hallway and the basement door. I was very fortunate in this room. The paint was already coming off the walls and ceilings in big sheets before I even started, and this uncovered a plaster with a beautiful sand finish. With the paint out of the way, the problems with the walls became more apparent. Over the decades, inappropriate materials were used to patch the walls. Modern cement mixes and drywall mostly. It was essential that we remove these patches, especially the cement. A modern Portland-based cement will eventually cause lime and sand plaster to totally disintegrate, so every last piece of it has to go. Fortunately, as I removed these patches, I found the original lath still in place. Lucky me, eh? By the time I removed all the bad patches, I found that I had a huge amount of plaster to redo, over 2 yards superficial. Another problem, my ancestors don't seem to have been very skilled with plastering. The spacing between the lath was a bit wider than usual, but I'll make it work. I dampened down the lath and put on the first coat of plaster, just sand, lime, and hair. The fresh plaster should flow between and then slump in behind all the lath, and this will form a very strong mechanical bond. I was really nervous about the floors. I've seen floors in old buildings that are almost perfectly preserved. In kitchens, though, I've seen a lot that were totally ruined. To see what I had to work with, I started removing a section of the circa 1960 green linoleum tiles. It was a real struggle. The floor was pierced by hundreds of tiny nails. The roofing shovel, borrowed from an old friend of my grandfather's, really saved the day for me. It was a great relief to find a mostly well-preserved tongue and groove subfloor. But there are some exceptions. Floors under and around sinks are usually subject to a lot of moisture and decay. I do believe we're going to run into some pretty extensive damage up here around this sink. There's only one way to find out. It was no surprise to find the top of some of these boards totally gone, rotted away with time and water. Sometimes it's possible to salvage a partially rotten or worn out floorboard if at least half of it is solid. Alright, let's see what the boards look like from the bottom side. Maybe we might be able to work some magic. Judging by what I saw from the basement under the sink, I should be able to use some of these boards again. Fortunately, as I exposed the old subfloor, I found a beautiful material not seen in about 60 years. There was one spot over by the chimney that was a bit curious. What the hell is that for? But in general, it was in beautiful shape. So what did I do with this wall? Took away a few things. And then I put up a temporary wall and door leading into the current bathroom. Next spring, this awful, terrible, disgusting 1970s bathroom will be gone and the former entrance hall fully restored. Final step is to go through and dress up all the corners. and we've got plenty of them to do. The plaster in the corner showed far more damage than normal. It didn't take me long to figure out why. Oh, Jesus Christ! God damn! Son of a... My great-great-grandfather failed to put lath up, covering a substantial percentage of the corner, and the plaster was just kind of hanging in the air there. I had to go back and fix his mistake 110 years after he made it by putting up new strips of lath and then replastering the corner. Getting a good bond on ceiling plaster is probably more essential than wall plaster if you don't like the idea of chunks of plaster falling on your head at awkward moments. Fortunately, the rest of the ceiling looked pretty good. Now for paint. You don't want to see me paint, do you? Let's do a little bit of cleanup. I feel like I'm missing something important. Oh yeah. All right, he's back. We're good. I generally hate cleaning and have a very high tolerance for dirt and grime and dust. But mopping this floor was actually pretty satisfying to me. From a rough start, this room is now ready for the next stage in the reconstruction. The historic elements are fully preserved and restored. And we're ready to install cabinets and modern appliances for the modern woman. As for the windows, these are not going to be changed out. Some will be reworked and restored, but these offer a very visual and obvious connection to the past. And I'm not going to replace them at all. To move on to the next stage, we naturally have to build cabinets. So I got my lumber and time to get started on that.